Hi guys, thanks for watching this video for my GoFundMe campaign. I need your help. I need my audience's help. I need donations right now. I need help from my spiritual community at large, okay? I never call on anyone. I'm calling on you now because I need to do three things. I need to get back to the US. I've got to refilm for 2 documentaries, okay? And it's the cost for getting myself and my producer in a car to travel across America to meet new witnesses and to get the new testimony that we need. So basically, new evidence came to light on the Richard Baldwin documentary that completely shifts the whole documentary. I'm going to go over and vlog the whole thing. I'm going to be sharing my journey with you, okay? So it's no longer called Richard Baldwin, A Murder in Camelot. It's going to be called something else, okay? And this new testimony is going to blow the whole case out the water, all right? So I need help in funding that. I also need a bit of help on my journey across America in refilming some of the scenes that I filmed for the Channeling documentary. So both the Richard Baldwin documentary and the Channeling documentary, or the docu-series that they're going to be, are going to be free on my network by the look of it, okay? And finally, I want to launch the International Spiritual News Network. This was going to be the network that's going to not only take the documentaries that I'm doing now and in the future, which is looking at problems within our community, looking at all sorts of mainstream issues as well. But most importantly, the ISNN will be looking at the mainstream news from a spiritual perspective. Imagine listening to the news and then hearing the deeper karmic reasons as to why the things are happening the way they are. That's the whole point of the ISNN. So just go to www.theisnn.com and donate, please. Please help me raise 10,000 UK pounds to launch the ISNN, to travel across the US to complete these 2 documentaries, which will be the first docu-series going out on the ISNN. Okay, this is the announcement of the launch of the ISNN. So whatever you can donate, if you can just share this video, that would be amazing. And just thank you so much for your support. Hi guys, and welcome to another edition of The Kevin Moore Show. Now on today's show, I'm about to be joined by my guest, Tony Sayers. Now Tony is a passionate activist, vlogger, writer and public speaker who in 2013 started to become aware of the deeper goings on within this world and the hidden hands that control it. Now, since having these realizations, he has been relentless in his work to expose the levels of corruption in society in an attempt to help others open their eyes. He is driven by doing what he can in his own way to help future generations enjoy a better world. His work has been mainly focused on human psychology, mind control and spiritual laws. He is now progressing into technological, metaphysical manipulations and energy healing work. Tony Sayers, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for having me on the show. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, Tony, you do some really interesting work, I have to say. What is your sort of background then, in a sense? Where were you before getting into the work that you're doing now? And what is it that you do now as well?
Well, I don't want to make people tune off, but I was an estate agent, believe it or not, 5 or 6 years ago before I got into all this. And I was I think it was boredom that woke me up because I was working long hours, working weekends and, the daily grind. And I remember coming home late one night from a meeting with my boss and, he'd given me a rollicking about something. And I just remember standing in my kitchen and just thinking, God, is this all there is to life? Is this all I'm here to do? work this 9 to 5 for someone else that doesn't really even appreciate me. So yeah, from there I just started asking lots of questions that I'd never asked before, like, you know, who am I really, and what's my purpose, and you know, those big life game changing questions that I hadn't asked all my life. And then so the answers started to reveal themselves. You know, I'd stumble across researchers, David Icke and the like, and yeah, it just led me on a path which has been really quite dramatic. I've just gone, yeah, from the whole realization, because there's layers with it, isn't it? That you go through the political awakening, then the food and the health, and so I've been down all those rabbit holes, and you know, and now I guess to cut a long story short, I'm kind of in the metaphysical realms, and you know, looking at what's going on in 4D, and how we're getting manipulated from behind the veil of what we see as a 3D physical reality. And so my work has gone from that to going into energy healing, where now I'm removing implants and you know, alien implants and overlays, and you know, my work talks about the chakras also being an overlay, an artificial plug that is actually harvesting our energy. That's a lot of people have interest in that. And so that's where I am today, basically, and writing books, and just still trying to get the word out, and just playing my part to help humanity evolve past this condition of slavery.
All right. So that's 5 years. Is that 5 years you said there since the working in the estate agent job?
Well, maybe it's more than that. I was 30. Well, it was 33, ironically, which is a quite prominent number in numerology, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, 33. I'm 39 now. So actually, it's more. 34, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 6 years. So
6 years. Yeah. Okay. I mean, you mentioned some stuff there, like I'm gonna have to say the alien implant removal. What the hell is that?
okay, so basically, what we have in 3D is already manifested in 4D, and there's a lot of hijacking, just as there is in 3D, of the human energy bodies. And basically, what we're talking about with these implants are like devices, or yeah, hijacking tools that are implanted on us from the fourth dimension. These are AI implants, which are harvesting our energy, which are surveilling, hijacking, subordination, and just really keeping us in a low, dense frequency, so we kind of align with this reality that we're in here. So yeah, these are all fourth dimensional implants that are basically hijacking overlays, as I say. And yeah. Okay, so the who's doing that is, so human beings are massively powerful batteries. We're massively powerful energy generators. And the cosmic joke is that humans, or most humans at least, feel that they don't have any power. And this couldn't be further from the truth. And this is quite prominent in this field, in the fact that it's not just one kind of entity that is feeding on human energy. It's a whole array of them. We have we have AI, we have reptilians, we have interdimensionals, we have Metastoffels, multidimensional warlocks, we have Pleiadian aliens. So we have real, we have demiurge. So it's not just one distorted form of consciousness, it's a whole array of them. So we have a smorgasbord of different vampiric energies that are all siphoning our energy. But really and truly, that I would say AI is probably head of the snake, and a lot of what is, as I say, already it's now manifesting here in 3D. It's already there in 4D, and that's what I work on.
But where's the AI come from, in a sense? Where what's the origin of the AI?
Well, I mean, that's a tough question. Where did AI originate from? I mean, it's the way I see this reality. It's like a computer game, and just like the game, there's the player, and there's the game maker. So at some level, there must be some kind of frequencies to allow AI in, but I feel like it's malleable as well. I feel like AI can be used for both positive and negative. I mean, put it this way, we're using AI now for a positive thing. We're putting out some information, which is hopefully going to help people. But I feel like AI is only as good as its creator. It's only going to be as benevolent as its creator. And if we see what is happening with AI in this reality, it's actually quite frightening. If you look at websites such as DARPA, which is the US leg of their AI army, and the kind of things they're creating with AI, you have these robotic attack dogs, robotic bees to replace the bees here. So the consciousness that creates AI is either good or bad, and AI will manifest itself, I guess, from the creator's consciousness. Who that creator is right at the very start, it's difficult to answer that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think I've had others on, people like Tom Campbell, that's talked about this as well, and probably a few others in different ways, but kind of saying the same sort of jigsaw. Do you know what I mean? It's the same sort of puzzle that they're looking into, and I know obviously David Icke has over the many years. There's so much to talk about here. So just before we get into anything else, let's just ask you this. So what's the main message of your work, would you say, if you had one?
The main message of my work is, I would say, based on around two aspects. That if I had to sum it up in one or two sentences, it would be that people need to be their own leaders and stop looking outside of themselves for the next guru, for the next politician. We have the answers inside of us. I'm not saying that we don't need each other's help every now and then. If you need your electrics doing, you call in the electrician. There's specialized people that can help. I offer energy work, so that's a help. But my point is, it's when we start, accepting everything somebody says without even discerning it. And so it's really discernment and understanding that we have a lot of the answers ourselves, and this whole system in 3D and 4D is based on deception. We've been deceived, as I understand it, from the beginning. We were deceived in Atlantean times, and we were given all this tech, and we got greedy, and then so we descended to where we are now, and we're still getting deceived today. How often does the politician make the promises, and then everyone scrambles to the voting booth, and then the next thing I know, they've gone the other direction. And this is the same with a lot of aspects of this reality. There's false white light deceivers in 4D, just as there's deceivers in 3D. So it's really key that we fall in love with the word discernment. How does that? The problem is that we're taking things as truth just because they feel nice, and that's not always how truth appears to us. It doesn't necessarily always feel nice, particularly in new age arenas where everything's like rainbows and unicorns, and of course that feels lovely, and I can see why people are attracted to it. But is it really the truth just because it feels good? And quite often the case is, unfortunately, it's not. So having that, not being led by our emotions, and just really feeling something out. How does that person, what kind of energy are they giving up? How does that information really resonate when I put my emotions to one side?
Yep.
And that's really what my main message, if you're asking me what my main message would be.
Mm-hmm. Oh God, man, so much we can go from there. Not everything Well, okay then. Do you believe we live in a loving universe, a safe universe, or do you think it's do you think it's not a safe universe?
Um, I feel like there's love here. I think human beings in their natural state see, the way I understand humans is we were once genius. We were once creators of universes. We helped other civilizations with their own evolutions, and this is why we've been picked out and hijacked specifically because we are so powerful. And I feel like, obviously, through our hearts, we are by nature we are loving beings. It's just we've been through years and years of mind control, wars, poverties, generational woundings, abuse. That what's happened is that the human heart has shut down, and I would go as far as to say, as perhaps 90% of this planet's population have closed hearts through one reason or another.
Yeah, through
So
generational issues.
yeah, yeah, and I don't know if you've looked into this aspect of my work, but I also believe we live in a soul recycling harvesting mill. So what's happening is that there's two kinds of souls that are incarnating here. So we have the human soul and the non-human soul, and the human souls are they're dying, and then they get shown the false white light, where a false white light being shows itself as someone they admired in their physical life, maybe Jesus or Buddha, and because ignorance doesn't die when you die, humans not knowing any different get wooed by it, so they go to this false light. Then they have they're tricked into a life review where they're guilt tripped because we have empathy. You hurt this person in 1984, so you need to go back down and resolve your karma. So then the human obviously takes that with two hands, and they get sent back down. The memory gets wiped, and then they have another lifetime here on planet Crazy, where they're being harvested, energy harvested, both in 3D and 4D. And so the human souls have been on this cycle for years and years and years, many, many lifetimes. So they're very disconnected from their hearts. They're very disconnected from their psychic abilities. Most humans don't understand that we have psychic abilities. So we've lost all our abilities through this years of having our souls recycled over and over again. But at the same time, there are also non-human souls incarnating here, which are volunteering to come down and help break this and help the human souls out. And that's not to say that human souls are any better than non-human souls or vice versa. It just means that the non-human souls are a little bit more connected, with their psychic abilities, with their hearts, and they can be very heavily targeted because they pose a threat to the matrix, because they are coming in with a heightened awareness. These are people that often just know from a very young age things are not right here, so they can be very heavily targeted, and many of them go through very traumatic lifetimes. There's even birth bumping going on, where on a soul level the soul chooses the parents, and this matrix, through our astrological signs, which are basically barcodes, has the ability to bump the soul into a dysfunctional family. So the soul would have chosen a family that would help along with making the life as easy as possible to live out its purpose here. But the soul can get bumped into a dysfunctional family where it goes on to experience abuse, trauma, alcoholic parents, and then then it turns to drugs and alcohol when it's older, and it spends a lifetime trying to heal, or it doesn't heal at all, or it ends up suiciding or homeless, and so it's so that they can be very heavily targeted, and a lot of this resonates with people when I explain it. Well, it's a combination of research from different people. I'm working very close with another lady here, and we're researching all this. And really, the shifts that people experience in sessions when we're removing the implants really gives it a good basis that what we're finding is good stuff. So just through the people that I'm working on, and you know, how the shifts that they feel, I know that I'm onto something with this.
And what are, obviously you've got a website. Your website is?
It's transcendingtimes.org.
Yep. And you've got a, you know, you do healing sessions on there, and I've had a quick look at it. There's all sorts of things on that website that you offer. Yeah.
Yes.
What are some of the things you offer on there? Just so, you know, the audience knows as well.
Yeah, sure. Well, a big part of my work is chakra removal, and this always gets people attention. I'd always worked with chakras. When I left estate agency a few years later, I started getting into looking at energy, and I went on a Reiki course, and I did my level 3 attunement. So I was very attached to the idea of the chakras. It's quite an interesting story how I came about this. I'll just tie it up briefly for you. But about 3 years ago, I made a video that basically calling out the military, just saying, you know, they weren't heroes. They were going to fight wars for politicians to get richer and blah, blah, blah. And I put this video out, and then overnight, I woke up in the morning, it had gone viral. And so the offshoot was when I woke up in the morning, I had about 10 death threats in my messenger from military, because this video had made it into military circles. So anyway, that was that. And then for the months after that, I felt like I was walking around in a soup. It was really weird. I was getting really heightened anxiety, and it wasn't through fear, because I ever since I come into understanding, I always thought, well, you know, if it came to giving my life, then I would. So it wasn't fear, it was something else. It was like a dense energy, a soup that was just, I was walking around. I knew it'd somehow be related to these attacks online, but I didn't quite understand it at that time. And so I tried everything. I tried detoxing, I tried meditations, and all these things to try and get rid of this energetic soup that I was in. And one day, this lady contacted me on my Facebook, and she said, "Look, I'm finding this work. Part of it's around the chakras, and you know, they're part of the manipulation." And so I was quite desperate at the time, but something about it resonated with me. So I went ahead and had it done. And then, cut a long story short, the very next day, I felt this cloud had lifted, and you know, I never felt the same about them since. And since then, I understand that the chakras are just another overlay. They've made them look very beautiful and pretty with the rainbow colors in the New Age movement. But really and truly, they're basically plugs that plug us into, that entities can plug in and feed on our emotions and loop anxious thoughts and emotions back round. So it's a constant supply of food for them. So basically, when you remove this plug, this implant, they have no way of getting in, and you kind of get, your mind is very noticeably a lot quieter. So that's how I came to that realization. So from that point, I thought, well, I need to learn how to do this, and I need to let others know what I'm finding. So that's what I did. I learned how to do it, and then it's progressed from there to implants and removing sexual cords, because when we have sex, we become corded to that person for life. And actually, the women can take a lot of the karma of the man when she sleeps with the man, but that's going off on a tangent. So yeah, part of what I offer: chakra removal, implant removal, cutting sexual cords. So it's all around energy work and removal of stuff that shouldn't be there, that's siphoning our energy.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you for that, and that's all on your website. So, is there such thing then in your, I mean, this is just, obviously there's lots of different opinions in this field, and I've interviewed a lot of people on this, so this is just your opinion, and others will have a different opinion. But in your opinion, then, I mean, for the souls that I mean, how would a soul know when it's crossed over that what's appearing in front of it? If it's their parents, if it's Jesus, if it's Buddha, if it's Mohammed, or whatever it may be, right? How would they tell the difference between it being something it's not? I mean, surely that would. It's as simple as if it's coming from something that you would recognise at the deeper part of yourself, that's someone that is just is. I mean, why how would you know if it was that
Well,
deceiving?
most humans don't even think that there's a plan of deception. That most humans think that this reality is real and honest. So they wouldn't, when they're dying, they're not even aware that something might be there to deceive them. That's part of the problem. That's probably the largest part of how they do get people. So I mean, Max Spears spoke about this as well in terms of the false white light, and we all know what happened to him. And he said to go into the heart when you die, into the heart space. But yeah, I guess they do it. They're able to do it through people's ignorance and not willing to seek knowledge in their physical lives.
But how would you tell when you've crossed over? I mean, if you're going to go, yeah, how would you tell? I mean, wouldn't how would you tell you're being deceived by whatever experience you're having when you've crossed over? I mean, you say part of the deception is the life review, but I mean, you know, how would you
How,
know?
how, how would how would you know? I think first you've got to care to know. So when this is what I mean at the point of death, you would still understand. I mean, it's different for people like us because we have an awareness that this reality is very much based on deception. So when we die, I guess we're going to be a lot more discerning than the average Joe who just cares about football and drinking beer, and he's just going to get straight because he doesn't know any different. He's just going to be tempted into this life review. But how would you know if you were it's using your discernment. And I guess you would ask the right questions back and ask probing questions to whoever it is, and you can ask them to reveal themselves.
Yeah, yeah, okay. But what's the difference then between someone that's been fed the white lie, and to a soul's genuine progression into where we go to? What's a genuine progression in where we go to then?
I feel the genuine progression is we have a choice. The problem is with this soul meal matrix, it's not giving the people a choice. It's not giving the soul a choice to leave the human experience. It's just getting the soul to come back into the human experience again. I feel like when we die and we have true understanding, we can then say, okay, do I want to come back down to earth and help on another lifetime, or maybe I want to go to another reality, or maybe I go back to essence, and all these other options that there may be there. But the choice is being taken away from us when we die by this entrapment.
Right. Obviously, you've mentioned discernment in the spiritual, metaphysical, alternative, conspiracy. There's so many different labels, isn't there, for different. And like you said, when you first started out, you was very much into the political scene as well. Whether it's Alex Jones or whatever it may be that was driving you, which I find Alex Jones very fear porn based.
Yes.
Great for production values, but it's just a lot of fear porn, and yeah, you move out of that, don't you? But like you say, you're in the metaphysical sort of place right now. But discernment, I think so many people get taken in by false teachers and misinformation, but I, I'm just not that taken in by it. I mean, if you can normally tell if someone is not who they say they are just by what they're saying and their actions, because love doesn't come from the actions that some of these other people who are criminals in our field and fraudsters.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of people out there that just get taken into it.
Hmm.
Why is that? What's make? I mean, is it because we are more discerning because we've been through a process, or what's the difference?
Yeah, I think I think this reality is tough enough anyway. I mean, just being here, just surviving, earning to feed yourself. I mean, like we're the only species that does that. Having that pressure day in, day out, and that's without any kind of trauma that you've had from a childhood, from perhaps abusive parent, and I think particularly with the new age scene, where people go into these gurus that say that these women need their wombs healing and they're the only man to do it. I think there's some very, very just desperate people that if something, even anything, sounds better than their current reality, they will just jump on it. And I've spoken to people like this. They've said to me, Tony, I was like that. I would have jumped if someone said jump off the cliff. I would have done it if it said it made me feel a little bit better. And I think that's the problem. This reality is it's so many people are carrying around trauma, and if something sounds a little bit nice and good, and with the new age it propagates just to avoid the negative, then they're going to go for it. And I think it's out of desperation that people do this, and that's where I guess the more desperate people that are in need of healing really need to engage the discernment more than
True.
perhaps others.
True, but the stupidity that was there in religion is
Hmm.
now there in this community, because a lot of people have come to this community to get away from religion, and it's just
Yes.
utter stupidity about what some of these leaders talk about. When you're going out of the shared reality that we all are part of,
Hmm.
I don't see that really that helpful, to be honest. I mean,
Hmm.
we've got this shared reality for a reason, because that's what we have right now. And
Yes.
the escapism out of that into the secret space program, into so-called whistleblowers who have information that no one else has, into
Hmm.
mental masturbation of all sorts, right?
Hmm.
It's so stupid, yet
Hmm.
people lap it up. I mean, right
Yeah.
now I'm doing a documentary that's going against one of the secret space program whistleblowers, which is Mark Richards, which is supported by Kerry Cassidy. And
Okay.
as much as I've tried to share my evidence with Kerry Cassidy, as much as I've, I'm going back over to America to refilm a lot of the documentary because new information's come my way, right? And the
Hmm.
story of Mark Richards is absolute bollocks. But it's
Really.
like, show me the bollocks and I'll lap it up. The more bollocks you can feed me,
Yeah.
and the problem is, so it's not just the bollocks from the people giving the stories, it's the bollocks from the hosts who are just as mentally. No, actually, the hosts are criminals and they're
Mm.
fraudsters. Criminals
Yeah.
operating money laundering with people's money and donations in our field, and not really giving two shits about helping
Mm.
people. It's just the criminal activity. And there's so many others. There's so many, but they come across so genuine,
Yeah.
and there's so many other people within their criminal gang that back them up. They're all
Mm.
connected, and it's just
Yeah.
it's like any field, isn't it? But we are concentrated on our field right now when we talk about this.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's a minefield out there trying to, the agents are out there infiltrating, and yeah, there's a lot of questionable people out there, and I guess this is where discernment comes in. And I even say to people like, don't take what I say as 100%. I actually like it when people question me, because I can see then that they're using their own critical thinking process. So I agree with you. It's very difficult out there at the moment, and trying to decipher truth from lies can be quite challenging. And yeah, this is where the discernment comes in.
You see, I mean, I'm doing a documentary on channeling right now, and it's ongoing because I've had to take some out, and I'm putting some new ones in when I go back across America this time, right? And um, I've met the good, the bad, and the ugly in channeling, and there is the good ones. There is genuine good entities that they're speaking to, and there is some very, very, very bad ones, right?
Mm.
Um, but there's more good than there is bad. I think if I
Mm.
was starting to go down some of your thinking where it's like, if we could do astral out of body travel, it's just bad, 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 but be careful. I'm not saying don't do it, but be careful.
Mm.
If you were going to, try some channeling yourself, be careful, be careful, be careful. It's as
Mm.
simple as this, to me it is anyway. If it's coming from absolute crap and negativity and control, that
Mm.
is not that's not helpful. If it's coming from a perspective of a life coach and wanting the best for
Mm.
you and giving you the power back, even if it's
Mm.
coming through you from your higher self, you're opening up to that, then
Yeah.
fine, go for it. That's
Yeah.
that's not hurting no one.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree, and I think with the channeling thing as well, I think it's keeping your own vessel clean as well. I think if you're channeling and you're doing drugs and alcohol, it's it's I wouldn't really trust what's coming, and many quote unquote healers do, unfortunately. They they don't keep their own vessels clean, and that's something that quite annoys me. But I think, like you say, I think there is good and there is bad out there, and I think we can receive good and bad information. But I think a lot of that depends on how we live our own lives, and I think that's key.
It's like when David Wilcock talked about recently about the fires in paradise, which so
Mm.
many people lost their lives in those fires, right? And he's
Mm.
talking about there was these underground bases in paradise, and alien underground bases, and that's why it burnt down. Fucking go tell that to the people that lost their lives and their family
Yeah,
members there. Are
yeah,
you for fucking real? Do you know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
And all his audience does is say, "Let me suck your cock," because that's all
yeah,
they're basically doing, right? Excuse my
yeah, yeah.
language, but it's like,
No, that's
where
true.
is your thinking going?
Yeah,
What is
yeah.
going
Or
on?
the other one is that they'll say it's their karma. They chose to experience that hell. It's full of it. That
Okay. Well, that perspective where people chose to see. Well, did they choose that reality? Did they? I don't know. Do we choose our death? Do we choose our
um
death?
um I don't think anyone comes here to choose trauma. I think we experience trauma a lot of the time because of the stuff that's going on here, and the constant wars that are being raged, what we're doing to the environment. And I guess there is maybe a karmic consequence, but I think at the same time there is manipulation and hijacking that's kind of making these things a lot more difficult.
Okay, absolutely, and I know there's so many ways we can take this interview right now. We're 36 minutes in, right? I think one thing we've just got to talk about as well is the narcissist,
Hmm.
because that will tie into the energy vampire a little bit as well. So, so if you were just to sort of give us your description of a narcissist as well.
Mm. Yeah, I guess someone who is just very very like not open to anyone's opinions, very self-centered, ego-driven, um, shuts people down. My way is the highway. That kind of thinking, that kind of mentality. Also very manipulative, acting out as someone maybe they're not, wolf in sheep's clothing. Showing a side that isn't really them, but then after a while, the wolf starts to appear. Very, very clever. Very, very manipulative in terms of manipulating other people, um, and knowing what strings to pull in terms of smearing a person. And yeah, just a very, very clever, but hides it very well, manipulative person.
Do they have
And
any empathy?
really very, very damaged, I
Very
think.
damaged. Yeah, do they have any empathy?
So I feel like there's two kinds of people. I think we have these people that control the world that are complete psychopaths, and I think there's something missing there, the empathic gene. There's a disconnect between the heart and the neocortex with these people that make it to the top in business, in politics, and And I think these people are out and outright psychopaths. And I think maybe the narcissist is perhaps maybe one under from those. Maybe yeah, there's not much empathy a lot of the time with the narcissist as well. But yeah, there's a disconnect there for sure, and yeah, very very dangerous. And more, we were talk- I said more and more apparent. We were talking off air about how these narcissists are infiltrating the spiritual scene. We spoke about John of God. There's a whole the biggest yoga tantric school, in one of the biggest in the world, over in Koh Phangan in Thailand, has just been shut down because the Swami there was raping women and using his position of power. He was telling women that their wombs needed healing, and he, his dick was the one to heal it for them, for want of a better way of putting it. And then there's reports coming out on Muji doing the same thing, and there's videos of him, getting people to kiss his feet and hand feeding him, and it's like these people are infiltrate. I think what happens with it is it's the power. I think the power, once you get too much power, it can go to your head, and somehow it really infiltrates your whole being, and it can switch you. So I feel like maybe some of them don't always start off like that, but they just become so powerful, and everyone's, like you said earlier, sucking their dicks, that it just becomes them, and they become to expect it, and they don't like anyone that falls out of line of that thinking.
But when that crazy talk comes along of the crazy things they're talking about, which comes out of coming out of shared reality or not, or it's just there's no evidence for it yet. It's very cult-like. It's very cult-like in a sense.
Yes.
And yeah, John of God. I mean, he was he's serving time now in jail in Belize for horrendous crimes against women and children. I think it was as well. I mean, thank God, right? But and I do feel that by us even talking about it on this show, that this must be in the consciousness of others as well. There's something wrong. There's something wrong.
I think so, and I think it touches back on what we were saying earlier about, unfortunately, there are some very very damaged people that need need help. And I feel like just mentioning it on this show, if it reaches a few ears of people that are in that position, it will just, maybe they'll double check themselves when, someone just tells them that everything's going to be fine, it's all love and light. And, the way I understand healing is that, you have to go through it. It's like, it's not just going to just disappear if you just sit there and think of love. You have to go into the subconscious parts that are wounded. You have to work with the inner child, and there's no easy way to heal trauma. And I think this is what these cults and the New Age scene preys on. It says, right, okay, here's an easy way of for you to get over your abandonment as a child. Just come and join us, and we'll just ignore the mind, and we'll sit there and think it's love. It's not going to work.
What about this, where people like Kerry Cassidy are saying that I'm working for the dark and she's working for the light, and many others I've heard say that. Not just I'm just pointing her out as she's my documentary right now, but I mean I've heard others say this. I mean there's a channel that I'll be dealing with soon that you could say the same thing. Says they're working for the light, but she is working for the dark in a sense. Is that a narcissist confused or?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I mean, if I heard someone say that, because there are people that are working for good and others that aren't. So I guess in that sense it's true, but I guess I'm always a bit more wary of the people that are calling things out first of all. So the way I would look at it is I would research both people and just really get a feel for their energy, what they're saying, and just really go from there. But quite often it's the people saying that someone's working for the dark, that maybe they're working for the dark. But yeah.
I do tend to get that. Yes, yes, yes. I think that. But well, what are the sort of dangers then of mishandling a sort of narcissist as well?
Wow. I mean, mishandling a narcissist can lead into all sorts, smear campaigns, and with social media now, I mean, it's so easy just to say this person's done this, this person's done that, and all of a sudden, thousands of people, have an impression of someone that maybe might not even be true. So
Well,
it's a
that
very
sounds so familiar. That does, because obviously Kerry Cassidy put a private investigator on me. She's doxed me twice on
wow,
her website right now. Bringing up
wow,
all my past when I was thinking about getting into the sex toy industry, or
yeah,
when I had many different businesses doing different things. Well,
yeah.
software distribution. And they've tied it in very nicely to make me look the shit, just to put down the evidence that I'm trying to raise against her top whistleblower, that he's not who he says he is, right? So kill the
Yeah.
messenger kind of thing. So that's very familiar. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah. I mean, I've had similar with ex partners that I left, and because they couldn't have me, they wanted to control what people thought of me, and so it's very difficult to deal with. It's one of the hardest things. But I tell you what, there is such a gift from having dealings with a narcissist, because if I didn't have the dealings with a narcissist, I would still be caring what people thought of me. And what that enabled me to do is actually, when you take the lesson out of it, and as hard as it is, all you're left with is yourself and the universe. And I actually got to the point where, as long as I know the truth, and as long as the universe knows that I'm doing good, that's all that really matters. And the people that love your work, that love you, will stick by you, and the people that don't were not your friends anyway. So you actually have a real spring clean of people that were pretending to be your friend, and you get the real quality people around you. So as difficult as it is, there is a gift in the whole experience in time once it all settles down. But it's a horrible thing to go through, and I think as more and more people are damaged, and the matrix energies are ramping things up, because I think also someone like yourself and perhaps me, we're putting out information. There's going to be energies in the unseen that don't like that, and we can be targeted through different people, through love interests. Eve Lorgan does great work on the alien love bite. I don't know if you've ever had a look at her work. She's well worth looking into. But how relationships can be set up in 4D, where on the surface they can show up as your as everything you'd imagined as a partner, and then as time goes by, they're trying to get you to do things against what you would normally do, and causing problems, and then all of a sudden there's a smear campaign about you, and very, very real in my experience. And I think it comes with the territory of putting out really intense information, like you're doing, and similar to what I'm doing as well, that we're always going to be a little bit vulnerable, and I guess that's the
I
brave thing about what we do.
I just went through a massive shift in discernment in my career when doing the Channeling documentary, and obviously now working on the Mark Richards documentary, and sort of filming them back to back right now because they're both in different stages. I never thought they were going to take this long, but these things take time, and it's just been the biggest eye-opener ever. And I think if I can then apply that to everything I do, and to help people as well in their discernment, I think
Yes.
I at least can, at least it's some sort of genuine sort of awakening then.
Yeah, yeah.
For that, as much as I don't want to be pushing. I mean, you can't. I mean, look, I have lots of different interviews, and many different people can have their opinion on here. But I think there is a sort of stuff that you put down sometimes. I can accept. You have to question. You have to question.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
With energy vampires, then, just moving on from the narcissist to energy vampires, how would you? Well, there is a difference, isn't there? Let me just get you to sort of answer the energy vampire question.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just as there's like I guess entities in 4D that want to drain on our energy as well. There's also human beings that also want to take our energy as well through psychic attacks and psychic energy. And basically that's what they are. And you know, you can tell these people, most of us have had at least one or two people of this like this in our life, where you know, you'll spend time with them and you'll just at the end just feel like, oh my God, like that was just, I feel so drained. And you know, the reason for this is because unfortunately a lot of people through trauma, it may not be their own, you know, it might have been through something that had happened to them. They're lacking their own light. So what they have to do is they have to try and take it from others. And so this is the whole vampiric reality that we're living in. So the energy vampires is really just raising awareness about, you know, how to set strong boundaries with those people, and you know, again, like discernment. And you know, it's quite often the energy vampire is the person that you're on a meal out and they want the limelight all the time. It's all about them, and or it can express itself in another way. If you have a person in your life, maybe it's a mother-in-law or mother, or you know, ex-partner or whatever, and you know, you're the one that's always giving. You know, you're always the one there. You're always the one listening to what they've got to say, and they never ask you about you. They never want to know what you're doing, how things are going for you. That's also another form of vampirism. So it's slightly different from the narcissist, but still, it's all about protecting our energy. And you know, this is, like I say, where my work's going now. It's shielding ourselves as much as we can from these archetypes.
And how does one, just very briefly, shield themselves, real briefly?
Well, I mean, distance. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not always possible to cut out someone, especially, you know, if it's an ex-partner and they've, you know, you've had a child together. It's very difficult to say, right, that person's no longer in my life. But you can certainly distance yourself, and do work around that. But yeah, it's just, you know, becoming aware of people and how they affect your energy when you're around them, really.
Now I know we're almost 10 minutes before the hour's up, and there's just so much we haven't even covered here, right? Let me just go straight to your book, The New Age is the New Cage.
Mhm.
What is the meaning of that then?
I guess it is what it says on the tin. The new age for me is the new religion. You know, it's a you might as well be Catholic, you might as well be Christian, Muslim, because I see that scene as, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some truth in it. It's not all lies, but it doesn't promote any kind of evolution or deep healing for me. All it does is promote spiritual bypassing. And you can see how it's been set up by dark occultists, because, you know, some of the main teachings in it, like ignore the negative. I mean, that's great for them. You know, here we have a system raging wars, stealing taxes. If they can get everyone to ignore what they're doing because it's negative, then it's an easy way for them. You know, never get angry. That's another one. I mean, you know, all right, don't get stuck in anger because that can be damaging. But the actual emotion of anger exists for a reason. And you can use anger to harness and drive into taking action and taking change in the world. The reason that you probably started this radio show is because part of you felt angry about the injustices going on in the world. So it's driven you on to maybe doing something about it. There's a whole array of teachings in different formats within that scene. You know, obviously the chakras is a big one for me, and we have a tendency to, you know, to think that because something is ancient or traditional, that automatically they must be good or beneficial for us, which is kind of a nonsense, really, because the enslavement of humanity is also ancient. So whereas all this ancient knowledge and wisdom got us, well, we're still stuck in a cage. And it just seems to me, you know, in the new age scene, if you've got this fancy Indian name, then, you know, everyone's like goes gooey over you. There's very little discernment there. Everyone's looking for the Galactic Federation of Light to come down and save them. It's all about savior outside of yourself. It's all about having a guru, having an alien race that's going to come down and change things for us, whether that be the Pleiadians or whoever. And of course, it all sounds very nice. I mean, I'm sure you'd love it as well if something had just come down and say, right, we're going to sort all this mess out. You guys just sit back and we'll do it all for you. Just promotes apathy, doesn't promote deep healing. As we've already said, the kind of healing techniques just very, just focus on love, just ignore the mind, its ego, and there's so much wishy-washy crap in it that it is keeping people in another cage. They call it the last cul-de-sac before the honeypot, apparently. So I feel that's the case with it. And the good news is that people are starting to wake up and realize that, hang on a minute, this isn't all as love and light as we think it is. And the book just goes into the trappings of it, the different trappings, and again, discerning and like I say, it's not all bad. There are some beneficial things in it, but it's the same with religion. It's truth mixed with lies. It's the same with politics. They have to give you a hook to get you to buy into it, and then they'll just fill up the rest of it with lies.
Of course, absolutely. And you talk about, I think in that book, I think it is attachments. I mean, we've kind of touched on it a little bit, very briefly, but I see attachments is a difficult one because an attachment, could it be a positive? Could it be a negative? I mean, sometimes you hear some attachments are positive. Sometimes, by people's action, you could say, well, there must be some sort of attachment on that person because they're just not operating in the right space.
Yeah,
they're deceiving people.
Yeah, exactly. Well, positive attachments don't need energy. Positive attachments are already full up. So the only attachments that need human energy are the negative ones. So we can have positive interactions with positive entities as long as we discern them and we feel them out before we do interact with them. But they won't actually attach themselves. They don't need to. They have their own energy. The negative ones that lack light, this is why there's so much, war and low vibration, fear mongering and anxiety, because these are all the emotions that these negative attachments need to survive. So you can kind of see it playing out in 3D form. And of course, without that energy, they won't survive. And this is where we hold the keys, and we need to raise our consciousness. We need to heal ourselves and open the heart. And from there, it's game over for them, because without all that negative emotion and energy, and that's not to say just focus on one's vibration and that's all that matters. Of course, we still need to shine the light where the darkness is. But it needs to be done in tandem, I think.
Yes, and I think for so long people have not been calling out people in our community. They've not. There's been a lot that's been allowed to have gone away with, and it's bothered me, and and it's not about being an immature person that's just can't get his own way, or going into someone else's lane that they shouldn't do. It's just misinformation in our community that's just not healthy. It's just it's informing people that there's another way, I think, as well, that there's also, but you know what, this has probably been going on for bloody ages in our community.
Yeah, and especially now, there is a new consciousness coming into the planet, and the whole this is the other cosmic joke. We think that we have no power, and these controllers have all the power. They need us to survive, and this is why they do everything that they do. So I think, like on a positive, we have to realize that we are very, very powerful. We have a lot of the answers inside of ourselves. We don't always have to go looking outside of ourselves, and we one by one we can get there.
Yeah. Now, I know I'm trying to cover everything in the impossible time here, and I'm sure people listening to this have got lots of questions for you. And
Sure.
maybe in the comments, well, they can contact you directly, can't they, from your website if they've got questions?
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
a contact form on my website on transcendingtimes.org, or my email is tony@transcendingtimes.org.
perfect, perfect.
But I'm happy to chime in on the comment section and answer
Okay,
any questions.
thank you. Yeah, yeah. Um, okay, and Okay, and in the final book as well, I was just laughing there because I'm thinking about, because I know some people obviously, some people's comments are just beautiful. they're
Yeah,
just,
yeah,
they're just so nice. Yes, or they can be quite horrible, but that's fine. I'm used to that. The
used to
final
that.
one as well, yeah, plugged into porn. I just wanted to mention that one as well because obviously, it's you do so many different books, and that was another interesting one as well. And we've only got a few minutes to talk about it, but your take on that nowadays as well, and what that's doing to any generation, I suppose. I suppose the younger generation, I was going to say, but what about even our generation?
Yeah, I'm really proud of that book because it is quite a taboo thing. But yeah, porn. I mean, there's a whole destruction of the divine feminine going on. The feminine is going to help to nurture and bring in a new loving consciousness into the planet. But it needs to be held strong by the masculine, which is about protecting and action taking. And obviously they're trying to destroy these two innate energies that we have. We both have aspects of the other as well, but our overriding dominance is men have more masculine and females have more feminine. And the transgender movement might argue with that. That's another psyop to confuse the sexes and knock out the energies. So there's a destruction of the divine feminine that's been going on throughout the ages, all throughout religions, because they know this energy is very important to birthing a new reality. And so porn is a huge way of doing that. I mean, it's basically teaching men that women are just objects to be used and abused. What I speak about in the book is, I mean, you're English too. You'll probably understand it. Although I don't think it's just about England, but we grew up, or I grew up at least, down in Essex, with the conception that to sleep with a lot of women was a good thing. Notches on the bedpost, and it's that whole mentality of from a very young age, and then through porn. We're constantly being fed that women are just these objects that we're to sleep with, and so also, I mean, how many things are free these days? Hardly anything. But what's free? Porn. So why is porn free? So it goes into all of that, and just explaining how the two essences have been skewed and they're trying to destruct the feminine, but also what it goes into on the physical, mental, and spiritual benefits of refraining from masturbation, because there's a lot of things coming out now, and I don't mind saying, but I know this works because I tried it, and if you can stop from that, throwing your seed away, because that seed has life force energy in it, right? Which we can harness. All the great minds, some of the great minds, Tesla, Muhammad Ali, he never used to, because they understood that holding on to that seed gives you that extra 10, 15, 20%. And it really does. The creative energy. I wrote 5 books last year, and that was because I put it partly down to the fact that I refrained from doing that. And it is a bit of a taboo subject, but I think it's one that men really need to understand, that by throwing that seed away, you're damaging yourself. You're damaging yourself physically. You're damaging yourself by what you can achieve with your life, because you'll get a lot more done, and you're damaging yourself spiritually, because we know that it's wrong. There's a guilt after it. We know it's wrong, but we do it. So it's really just bringing those things to light and questioning it, and it goes into all that. But all these books are also available on audio as well. So I understand that people can't always
Sure.
sit through. in the
Sure,
books.
but you could say you're giving that seed away when you just, you know, if you're with a partner and you're not trying for a baby, maybe, you know, the partner's on contraception or something. Aren't you just you know, I mean, you could say you're just trucking it away then in one way, but then you're
Well,
making love with someone.
well, I write about that in the book as well, about the holding your seed whilst in a relationship, and there's actually stuff in the book around that as well. So there is, I mean, sex. This is the other thing with porn. Okay, so sex on a positive side, if you have two loving people, it's a very powerful vortex that can actually anchor down essence energy into this reality and help raise the vibration. But it's also in its distorted version, in the low vibrational porn version that we get fed. It's a very more lewd, animalistic kind of energy. It's not as pure. So in that sense, then it can have a different effect. So I think we have to look at sex and understand how really truly powerful it is, and really understand that this whole promiscuity that we have been fed is damaging everything. It's damaging our minds, it's damaging us spiritually, and you know, it's something that we need to relook at again, because I don't think, and I don't profess to have all the answers in the book, but I don't think we've understood sex how we should be understanding it.
But then if a woman masturbates, right? Obviously that's different to a guy masturbating. I mean, you're not, you know, obviously a woman's not going to release life force energy by masturbating.
Yeah, so there is, I mean, you can go on YouTube, and there's a lot of men that have are now doing this. It's called NoFap. You just type in NoFap on YouTube, which stands for no fapping, which is their word for masturbation. And there's also a movement for women in this field now as well. And I'll be completely honest, I've not researched, obviously, because I'm not a woman, but some women are reporting benefits of refraining as well. Although they don't have the seed, in terms they're not throwing it away. I don't know what the actual benefits that they're feeling, so I haven't looked into that.
No. I mean, this was just another book. I found it fascinating that you'd even covered it in the sort of, you know, the new age stuff and everything else, right? So I just wanted to mention that. Okay. And again, all your books have been coming up on the screen, and I'm linking them in the description of this video as well. What a way to end it. Okay. From conspiracy to the new age deception to masturbation. I tell you what, we cover it all here. That's the great thing about it, right?
Brilliant. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
I love you know, cracking these subjects open. They need to be, you know, it's on shows like this that give us all a platform. So credit to you.
Thank you. Okay, well, I would say what's your final sort of kind of thing, but I think you've said it at the very beginning. That's why I wanted you to get it in there, to get what the message is of what you're trying to promote here as well. And I still think that stands. I would just say, you know, Tony Sayers, just thank you so much for joining us, and I hope our paths will cross again in the future.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Been a pleasure.